So late last night, we had some news come out that the Jacksonville Jaguars have decided to make Anthony Campanile their defensive coordinator, and Campanile was the Packers linebacker coach and run game coordinator this past year. He came in from Miami in 2024 to work alongside Jeff Hafley. And so the Packers lose a key coach who clearly was respected by lots of different teams around the NFL. Apparently, the 49ers were also interested in having him as their DC if Robert Saleh had not returned. That's from Tom Silverstein. And so clearly he's a very respected coach. And let me read some of this information from Tom Silverstein of PackersNews.com. He said, 2 sources said Campanile's chances of landing the job rose considerably after he interviewed with new head coach Liam Cohen on Tuesday, and one of the sources said Campanile agreed to take the job Thursday night. He is one of 4 candidates known to have interviewed for the job, one of whom, Las Vegas assistant Patrick Graham, dropped out. Campanile was so highly thought of that the San Francisco 49ers interviewed him for their defensive coordinator's position and would have hired him if former New York Jets coach Robert Saleh hadn't agreed to return to the 49ers, a source said. In addition, he turned down an opportunity to become Penn State's defensive coordinator and interview for the same position at Notre Dame. And so the question is, what kind of impact will this have on the Packers? I think that we saw the Packers linebackers get better throughout the season. Edgerrin Cooper, rookie, started to look like an elite level player, and I think that he is going to be for years to come. I think we saw Quay Walker really start to play some of his best football later in this season. And so I think that he, brought a lot to this Packers team. He seems to be respected, and it probably is a loss to this Packers defense. And my question going forward, we saw Jeff Hafley interview with the Jets for their head coach job. And if he's already getting head coach interviews after 1 year as a defensive coordinator, if the Packers defense is a similar year as they did in 2024 next season, I think that Hafley will likely end up as a head coach elsewhere. And so that's one big question here, is who is going to replace Hafley after 2025 if he ends up being a head coach somewhere else? Because I think that if Campanile had been in Green Bay after this year, odds are, if he wouldn't have gone elsewhere, he could have potentially been that DC. When you see the Niners interested in him, you see the Jaguars deciding to make him their defensive coordinator. So it's almost like you lose a potential guy to replace Jeff Hafley if Hafley does go after next season. But that's just the reality of the NFL. Coaches are constantly bouncing around, and unless your head coach is the play caller of the defense and your defense is playing really good, you're probably going to lose your defensive coordinator. And so I think that's a question that lots of teams have to decide when it comes to, their head coach. Would you rather them be the offensive play caller or the defensive play caller? Because if you have the offensive play caller like Matt LaFleur, he's not going to end up leaving when, because he's calling plays well. He's the head coach. He's going to stay in Green Bay as long as he's doing a good job as the head coach. And so that's the unfortunate thing, that anytime, if Jeff Hafley leaves after next year, then the Packers will have to find another guy. And if that guy is just as good, they'll have to find another guy. And so that's something that, can take place here. And one guy who I think it looks like could potentially be replacing Anthony Campanile here could be Sean Duggan. This is from Tom Silverstein as well. Hafley brought linebackers coach Sean Duggan with him from Boston College last year. And after spending a year assisting Campanile, he is expected to move into the linebackers coach position. It's unclear if LaFleur will give Duggan the run game coordinator title that Campanile had. And so that's an interesting one. And I've just been wondering, okay, is there anyone on this Packers defensive staff that could replace Hafley if he leaves after next season? Doesn't look like it'll be this year, but potentially next season. And Duggan could be an interesting name to keep an eye on through the next year. Here's some more information from Bill Huber, who says, when Hafley was defensive coordinator at Ohio State in 2019, Duggan was a graduate assistant. When Hafley got the head coach job at Boston College in 2020, he hired Duggan to be his linebackers coach. In 2023, Hafley promoted Duggan to co-defensive coordinator and linebackers coach. So there's a trust in a relationship between coach and coordinator, plus a relationship between Duggan and the players in the depth chart. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that name correctly. But I think when Jeff Hafley does leave, if he leaves. I mean, I guess there's always a chance he doesn't take a job, but if he were to leave and the Packers defense has a great year in 2025, then I think best case scenario, you get someone in who can call plays similar to Hafley, someone who has a similar mindset, because if you're building a certain kind of defense with the players, you would rather keep that going. And so maybe someone like Duggan being around Hafley for as long as he has, maybe that's something that could happen there. I don't know if that's a long shot, just an interesting idea. And also, DeMarcus Covington, who was hired yesterday as the Packers defensive line coach in the past few days, he was the defensive coordinator in New England. They were the 22nd ranked scoring defense in 2024. But I did think about that yesterday when he got hired. Maybe he could be a potential Jeff Hafley replacement. So some interesting things there. If you want more Packers content, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time.